Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening, and welcome to our Tuesday, May 14, Sioux Falls City Council meeting. To those of you joining us in person and online, welcome. Clerk, we'll go ahead and get started by reading our roll, please.
Council members Neitzer.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Staley. Brecky.
Here.
Erickson. Here. Kiley.
Here. All right, to give us our invocation tonight is Pastor Kirk Flah with Abiding Savior Lutheran Church. Kirk is a pal of mine. There's not many people I can say I've hiked the mountains of Haiti with and ate tuna out of a bag together overlooking the ocean, and that's me and Pastor Kirk. We go back and we take mission trips together to Haiti, so it's neat to have you here to give the invocation tonight, Pastor. So if you want to rise and stand for the invocation and then stay standing right after for our Pledge of Allegiance.
And since I do have the microphone for a moment, I maybe would share one story from Haiti. Is that fair to do? I guess. Oh, yeah, I guess, no. We had to hike up a mountain, and Paul, of course, you know, we each would just carry one brick. There were big bricks. Paul had to carry two. Okay, does that surprise any of you guys at all? And he about died, but he wouldn't let anyone know it. So we appreciate that good example. So, and I would on behalf of our congregation, I want to thank the council and the opportunity to come tonight. We count this a deep privilege to be able to share and to pray before the city council meeting. And I want you to know that many folks in the church community are praying for all of you all the time, and we're grateful for your work and going to continue to pray for you in all the decisions that you would make. Lord, thank you for tonight, and thanks for the opportunity and privilege it is to come. And your word would remind us, Lord, especially that it's a responsibility that we would have to pray for those in leadership. And Lord, not just a responsibility, but really a privilege and a joy. Thank you for that tonight. And I want to pray for this group that's assembled now to make decisions regarding this great city and this great state. I would pray, Lord, that your will be done, that you would do a good work here tonight. And I recognize, Lord, there's all kinds of issues and concerns. But Lord God, overall, we pray that you be glorified, that you be honored, and that you would continue to grant to us your grace, your mercy, and your wisdom. Lord, thank you for the service of these individuals and of their families. And I pray, Lord, that they would press on, that you would continue to encourage them in all things. Again, thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to commit this evening to you in prayer. We ask for your mercy and your grace in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, tonight we recognize Councilor Christine Erickson, whose term as our chair will conclude as of next week. Are you going to get misty? No. Oh, okay. Not at all. Well, over the past year, I've had the honor to serve with Councilor Erickson in leadership, and I will tell you that the City Council and the City of Sioux Falls are a better place because of her tireless efforts on behalf of this council and our residents. I appreciate the fact that when you do something, whether it's in business or being a wife and a mom or serving here at Carnegie, you're all in. There's no half-hearted efforts and certainly no mailing it in with Christine. She gives everything her all, leads by example and with conviction. So on behalf of the City Council, I am honored to present you with this glass gavel in appreciation of your service as our chair. And thank you very much for your service and your leadership.
All right, I will echo Marshall's comments. Christine, thanks for, I know you've had to fill in for me on at least one meeting so far this year, so thank you for your service as chair. Marshall, thanks for your role as vice chair of the council this past year. We will move on to our consent agenda and look for any changes or motions on that.
Move to approve.
Second, Selberg.
All right, move to approve by Kylie and second by Selberg. Any discussion on that, council? A vote, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item is our regular agenda. Look for any motions on that.
Move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to approve by Selberg, seconded by Sale. Any discussion, council? Okay, a vote. Councilor Nitzert, do you have
I'm going to make a motion to amend.
Sure, you bet.
Motion to amend the regular agenda by placing item 26 after item 23 and before item 24.
Second, Erickson.
All right. Any discussion on that, council? All right, can I get a vote on that amendment, please?
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson. Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Any other changes or discussion? If not, I'll take a vote on the amended main motion.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky, Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that's passed 7-0. We are at the general public input portion of tonight's agenda. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person, and in total last no more than 30 minutes. During general public input, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear later on in the agenda. For regular agenda items following general public input, comments are limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item under consideration only. So at this time, come forward, which you already are, sir. And clerk, please note that our time is, and I'll go 7:07. Good evening, sir.
I'm Dave Wagner, simply a circulator, not a sponsor of these ballot measures. We need signatures fast. If our efforts are successful, both measures will appear on the ballot in 2020. Their related purpose is to have voters restore reasonable rules governing ballot initiative processes. One measure wants past complexities of existing state law to be revised. It strikes words, sentences, paragraphs out. It adds words, sentences, paragraphs in to existing state law. The second is a referendum. It seeks to nullify a recently passed law called House Bill 1094. That law is a further assault on the rules for initiating ballot issues. If we can't get both measures approved by voters in 2020, that likely spells the end of grassroots initiated measures in South Dakota. The rules have gotten too complicated. Time frames for signature gathering too short. Do you remember initiated measure 22 that voters passed in 2016? It was entitled the South Dakota Accountability and Anti-Corruption Act. It was a very thorough piece of work. The voters passed it. The legislature killed it. Later initiatives came along. Payday loan rates got capped. In these and other cases, citizens accomplished what seemed unlikely to happen in Pierre. We citizens are now fighting to preserve our supposed guaranteed constitutional right to petition government for redress of grievances, and that's word for word in the text of the First Amendment upheld by SCOTUS in 1787. The House Bill 1094 law allots too little time for gathering signatures. For some reason, we're getting an increasing number of signature refusals. Is it because people think we're being supported by dark, out-of-state money? In the current effort, there has so far been no out-of-state money. In some past initiative efforts, the out-of-state funder, Represent Us, was a 501c4 nonprofit whose own funds came only from individuals and philanthropic foundations. They took no money from corporate or political sources. That organization received no benefits to itself when client efforts achieved success. Failure to get both measures passed by voters in 2020 will be a demonstration of how easily a state legislature can nullify constitutional rights simply by introducing procedural and timing complexities into state law. My assertion here is that our state lawmakers are ignoring the thinking and philosophy embedded in our national constitution.
Thank you, Dave.
I know he's just he was concerned earlier about just having one or so more minute. I make a motion that we give him 1 minute more.
Counselor.
I believe the ordinance says shall not allow any additional time, whether we wanted to or not.
That's correct. Sorry, Dave. Thank you for your time.
America's Constitution of 1787
Dave, thank you for your
supports...
thank you for your input tonight. Thank you for your input tonight. Appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening, Scott Ersman, Sioux Falls. After I heard the news about an hour ago, I first want to start on a positive note. And I personally want to thank Councilor Starr and Councilor Steele for standing up to the parking ramp. A horrible, horrible, horrible project that we should have never gotten approved. They fought it all the way. I also want to thank the mayor, his legal department, and his finance department, anybody else involved who decided to terminate this. It was the right thing to do. Should have been done sooner, but I guess we can't go back in time. As for the councilors past and current that voted for this project, that cost twice as much as what it should have, located in the wrong location, and an investor who's being investigated by the federal government for the building collapse, you knew all of this stuff ahead of time and you voted for it anyway. Next week, you have an election for the council leadership. Anybody who voted for this project that's going to end up costing millions of dollars for the taxpayers in losses, even if we sue and are successful, we'll probably never see a penny of that money. Anybody who voted for this project should not be in leadership. They shouldn't even be eligible to be in a leadership position. Common sense told the citizens that came up here repeatedly, one after another, after another, after another. This was not a good project to be involved with at all. It was a horrible project. It had bad written all over it. $6 million foundation for what? A couple cars that are going to sit on top now? And if you think this is the only diatribe I'm going to have about this, I'm going to come week after week and remind you of how bad of a decision this was. And how some counselor is so dysfunctional to fight this, and so bad, and so divisive, when she was the only one that had the common sense to say something about it. I've been following the council for almost 15 years. I've never seen a council over the past 3 to 4 years that is so dysfunctional and makes such horrible decisions based on greed and developer welfare. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Bruce, Sioux Falls. So I want to make this clear because Council Erickson said last week at public input that the police and the code enforcement and the health people walk the streets on foot. Let me tell you something. They might walk the streets in neighborhoods that don't have high crime. If they would have walked the neighborhood in Whittier District, we have I'm going to tell you what the city employee did. We have a city employee that's inspected with the city. Never did he walk in that neighborhood and complain about these issues. When Matt Tobias and them went into that neighborhood, because it's so bad there, mind you, we have drug houses that had those 2 shootings in there. He decides to go and tell the people to go get a permit an hour before Matt Tobias comes there because the guy de-gutted his rental house and isn't supposed to without permits. So Miss Christine Erickson needs to know what she's talking about, because I'm here to testify that it's not the truth, that they do not walk. The police don't have time to patrol streets on foot and code enforcement and health violation people. They just don't have the time to do that unless citizens complain about that. And a prime example was the Whittier neighborhood. If they would have walked to that neighborhood, the Whittier neighborhood would not have been that bad on it. We had, I'm guessing, about 12 to 16 rental houses that look like the Stafford and Son. So let's not try to downplay it. And if they are doing foot patrol, they're doing it in the rich neighborhoods, because they're sure not doing it in Central District or in Pat Starr's district or in Greg Knighter's district. I know because I'm there all the time. I was just at that drug house today. So council members need to put themselves out there and go in these neighborhoods before they talk about code enforcement does this and the health department and the police do this, because it's not what it's cracked up to be. I have to push issues for these. I had to push and push and push to get Whittier neighborhood cleaned up. And I have someone that's going to testify on it today. And I wish a council member would say the same thing too, but he can't either. So we need to stop downplaying this. And say that people in the neighborhoods of city employees walk in these neighborhoods and check everything out, because they don't. We have a city inspector by the name of Tony that lives in the Whittier neighborhood, and Mr. Tony took it upon himself to not address the issues until he caught wind that Matt Tobias was coming, notified the people, and then they went to get quick permits to cover themselves. That's kind of the corruption we have with him on that. And I hope that he is dealt with internally for that. But the Whittier neighborhood is getting cleaned up. I would love for them to do a walkthrough on foot, like Christine Erickson stated last week. I would love that, because then we wouldn't have no issues and we wouldn't have all this crime in this neighborhood, even in Central District too. Let them walk it there too.
Thank you. Good evening.
Tim Stanga. Being able to work with Matt is a godsend in our neighborhood. But it took the phone call to get Matt down there to the city, to Whittier neighborhood, to be able to deal with the issues that we're dealing with. When you wave at a police officer coming by in his car, they don't wave back. I really doubt they're going to stop and walk up to my house and want to talk to me and ask me how my neighborhood is, because that's not going to happen. It'd be nice if it did happen, because really and truthfully, that's what the police need to do. The city needs to do that more often too. Janet, your letter, spot on. That never got in the newspaper. This city council is so dysfunctional. I've talked about it day in and day out. People that watch this station, they see it day in and day out. Is it going to get any better? Absolutely not. We have elections coming up. Well, the people of Sioux Falls can speak out. People can run. And I'm hoping that we do get people that run, that want to be here for the citizens of Sioux Falls and not special interests. I was another one that came in that parking ramp. Boy, was that a fizzler. But the thing is, we got our parking ramp. That's what we really wanted, and I think that's what was really sold to begin with, is to be able to just get the parking ramp, and then, but boy, Gage Brothers, they really got ripped off, because they would have had a nice parking ramp already put up with Gage Brothers. They would have had millions and millions of dollars that ran through Gage Brothers, would have put a lot of people to work through Gage Brothers, and, well, we get stuck with twice as much on a parking ramp than what we really should be paying. I'm hoping that really and truthfully the investors, we never ever deal with them again in this city. And why the citizens had to come up with a bond up front and these investors didn't have to come up with the same bond at the same time is just unbelievable.
Anyone else this evening? All right, clerk, next. Bobby, gonna talk tonight? All right, come on up, man.
I'll put my timer on. Okay, as you know, I like a little bit of history, and I thought that when we get elected, you and I, our obligation is to look to the future and do the best job we can for the future, but we always have to have a little hindsight and have to know something about what's taken place. I remember when working with the county, we had the fiasco with the Sioux Empire Fair and the embezzlement that was there. Good people, trusted people do things. We had audits by major companies here in Sioux Falls. They had minimal findings, and we had major citizens from the city sitting on the board, and we still came up after they quit looking with $500,000 short. And it can happen to anybody because at the same time, the Westward Ho, they went through the same thing of about the same amount of money, and there was a church that did the same thing. The only way that we found out what was going on, and that was after I left, they went through a forensic audit because a cursory audit from the front end doesn't do anything. That's digging in the past. There are two other things that need to be dug, and you will find that will be interesting, is when you do digging on the railroad property, it'll be interesting to see what you find. When you want to find more artifacts for the USS South Dakota, just go out to Elmwood and you can find them buried out there because that's what the city did with all of the things that came from the East Coast. They dug trenches and buried stuff. So there are a lot of artifacts from the USS South Dakota out in Elmwood. And last, when you're putting in the new right-of-way out here, what is it, the used to be Powder House Road, there's been rumors that I have heard, and for years, that on the Sunvold property, some of you know where that is, you will find things that make a Geiger counter go ticky, 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 ticky. Because supposedly things that were part of the spill at Pathfinder, now I can't prove it one way or the other, but you may just find some of that out at that location. Those are three things that are digging in the past and have been buried, and we all may find out in the future what they all have to do with us individually and what it may cost us. The obligation of the elected officials is looking for the future, but it's also knowing something about the past. And I've been in a place where saltines and tuna out of a can was a glorious meal. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. All right, anyone else tonight? All right, clerk, next item, please.
Item 22, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, authorizing the mayor to enter into a sublease agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and the University of South Dakota.
Hi,
Good
Jill.
evening, Jill Franken with the Health Department. This item authorizes the renewal of a sublease agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and the University of South Dakota for the university to sublease space that's adjacent to Falls Community Health Dental Clinic for purposes of their dental hygiene program and clinical services. So that's it.
Thank you, Jill. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic tonight? All right, counselors, do you have any questions for Jill on this one?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion approved by Counselor Erickson and seconded by Brecky. Any discussion, council? Okay, a vote on this item, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Sale,
Yes.
Starr, Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Item 23 is second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations, highways and streets, sales use tax fund, $1,875,000, facilities management, sales use tax fund, $1,210,000, general government construction fund, $290,000.
Hey, Sean.
Good evening, Sean Pritchett with Finance. So we've covered this appropriations request at an informational and as well as the first reading last week, so I'll attempt to be very brief here. Just quickly review what the appropriation request is covering here. So just a brief summary, there is a $1.875 million request from the Sales and Use Tax Fund related to several streets projects. I have a map here to kind of show that graphically of the areas that would be incorporated into this, as well as a $1.210 million Sales and Use Tax Fund appropriation and a $290,000 appropriation from the General Government Construction Fund related to the relocation of the Department of Innovation and Technology from the City Annex Building and completion of construction on the third floor of the city center. Just to give a quick reminder here, the building that we're talking about in terms of the selected location for the triage center is the City Annex Building. This is located just down the street from City Hall and adjacent to the City Hall parking lot. And as we spoke about in previous presentations, this is the area that had been selected as they've gone through the implementation development phase for this potential center based on its location, proximity to law enforcement and healthcare providers, as well as the actual layout of the building and it being conducive to the proposed uses that are for the triage center. As part of that, because this building is currently occupied by the Department of Innovation and Technology, the proposal is to move most of that department to the third floor of the city center and build out that third floor that hasn't been completed. So kind of to reiterate the sources and uses, that is a $2 million project, and there are two components of our request tonight as part of that construction. So $549,307 is the amount that we have remaining from the contingency that we don't believe will be obligated for the completion of the first two floors of the city center as that comes to its conclusion. But the appropriations that are requesting is the $290 from the general fund or the general construction fund. And that is interest income that was accumulated on the bond proceeds that were utilized for the city center. So while we had the funding and after the bond was sold, the funding was received, sat in that fund and accumulated interest during that time. So we are requesting to appropriate those remaining funds as part of this project, as well as the $1.21 million from last year's remaining balance in the Sales and Use Tax Fund. The uses of those funds would be about $1.5 million for construction, about $88,000 for design, as well as $435,000 for FF&E and technology. I did want to show you here tonight, this is kind of a preliminary layout of what that third floor would look like. It's a little hard to read, but it would allow for, if you see the orange area, that's where the communications staff would be relocated to. It would also, the print shop for the city would be relocated in that kind of centralized corridor area adjacent to that. The IT help desk would be in the central area there. The systems analyst area would be off to the upper right there, as you can see, and then of course network administration in that kind of faded yellow area you would see in the lower portion. Similar to the first two floors, the conference spaces, there would be conference spaces in those inner sides that are shown in blue. And then the other piece I wanted to point out is in kind of that lower left-hand corner, you can see some flex space that's still available there too. So one of the benefits we had when that third floor wasn't built out is that availability for using that flexible space. They had set up, the transit core team was utilizing for that work. So it does allow some availability of space to continue to have that type of availability of space for use of the city. The GIS department, which is also part of the Department of Innovation and Technology, would be moved to City Hall, and there's space that's already been completed and utilized for various purposes in City Hall on the second floor that is move-in ready and doesn't require any additional work related to that. This just kind of gives you a snapshot of what that flex space might look like based on some of these preliminary designs. The $1.875 million, so most of that is going to be allocated to four specific projects through the Asphalt Street Rehabilitation Program. So $1.575 million is allocated to that. It include two portions of Minnesota Avenue from 2nd to 4th Street and from 11th to 18th Street, as well as 6th Street from Minnesota Avenue east to Main Avenue. and on 49th Street from Marion Road to Solberg. So this kind of just gives you an idea of where those would be located in the community. The other piece of this, as we had discussed in the last couple of weeks, is $300,000 that would be utilized to begin design for road work that may be necessary for Jefferson High School, as that location has now been determined. With that, is there any other questions related to this request?
Thanks, Sean. I'll first see if there's any public input on this topic from anyone in the audience. All right, counselors, do you have questions for Sean on these items? All right, see none. Is there a motion to make on this?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second, Selberg.
Move to approve by Brecky and seconded by Selberg. Council, any discussion on this topic? Councilor Brecky.
First of all, thank you to the administration for putting together uses of these funds, these additional funds that were consistent with some of the things that came forth in our council discussions and some of the things that showed up as priorities in our pre-budget discussions. I appreciate that. Just wanted to say, because I know everybody's worried about the streets, so it certainly seemed appropriate to put some additional money in some targeted areas there. But just wanted to say a word about the triage center. I just am fresh from having done a tour of the building and learned. I think what's an important fact is that, well, I guess I knew it used to be the community health center, but because of that, it's got all kinds of extra wiring and plumbing that once they, shed the walls, it's going to, be a very nice fit, for what the triage needs are going to be. I'm also excited about the fact that the building has opportunities for expansion or co-location, because as we dive into these new problems, there might be new solutions that require additional space as we go in a learning mode. So I think it's a terrific location. I think it's a terrific reuse of the existing facility. And I just want to do a shout out to all those individuals on the committee that worked on it and all the city folks who've worked on bringing it to this point. I'm really excited to be able to be a help in moving this forward.
Thank you, Counselor. Other discussion, Council, on this? All right, a vote on this, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr, Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0, and we'll move to item 26, which was moved up.
Item 26 is a resolution amending the 2019-2023 capital program, Public Works, Highways and Streets, $1,875, Facilities Management, $1,500.
You're on.
So this coincides with the appropriation that you just approved in the second reading. This amends the capital improvement plan to reflect those changes that you just approved.
Thanks, Sean. Anyone from the public want to speak on this topic? Councilors, any questions on it?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
Move to approve by Erickson and seconded by Kylie. Any discussion? All right, we'll vote on this, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr, Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, passes 7-0. Next item.
Item 24 is a first reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Section 51.0103 of the Code of Ordinances of the city pertaining to Water Department water service connection and meter charges.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Nick Borns. I'm the Principal Engineer for Water and Light and Power here at the City of Sioux Falls. I'm here today to talk to you about proposed changes to Ordinance Chapter 51.010, Section 3. This is the first reading. As you mentioned, we'd be looking for second reading on May 21st, and that would be an update to the ordinance by resolution. So real quick, just want to go through some presentation objectives, just kind of give an outline of what we're going to talk about here tonight. I'm going to provide some background on water service piping here at the City of Sioux Falls, and then I'll provide some information on a material called PEX-A water service piping, and then we'll talk a little bit about the city's material use consideration process. I'll show the proposed update in summary form, and then request for an update support. So this exhibit shows essentially this is a cross-section look at water service piping from the main to the house. And this is real close to what you'd see here at the City of Sioux Falls. And just a couple things I want to point out on this exhibit. I guess, first of all, the point of separation in ownership is the curb stop, which is typically located near the property line. The segment from the curb stop to the house is owned and maintained by the property owner. This segment can be copper or high-density polyethylene, or HDPE. The segment from the curb stop to the main is owned and maintained by the City of Sioux Falls. That material is required to be copper. And this is the segment that we are piloting a new material called PEX-A water service piping. And we'll talk about PEX-A here in the next few slides. So a little bit about PEX-A water service piping. Brief history: it was discovered in the 1960s. The initial use was for in-floor heating systems. The material had since been improved to meet industry standards for drinking water. The PEX-A material composition is a form of polyethylene piping. It has cross-linked molecules, which improves the durability. The compatibility aspect, that's something that we at engineering really key on when we're looking at new materials. We're looking to make sure that it meets industry standards, both local and national industry standards. This material does that. And then we also look at climate compatibility. And this PEX-A water service piping material is compatible with our climate in our region. So a little bit about the City of Sioux Falls and PEX-A piping. Our initial research began in 2017. We brought this material to IRAB in the summer of 2018, and then we began a brief pilot project in the fall of 2018. Since that time, we've continued ongoing research on the material, and we've coordinated with other municipalities that utilize PEX-A piping material, namely Brookings and Fargo. So the PEX-A water service piping does have some advantages over copper. A few of those advantages, the most obvious is the cost savings. But in addition to the cost savings, there's also some construction advantages. The material is lighter weight. It's easier to maneuver, and it bends easier, so it's easier for the installation. This material can actually be squeezed shut, which could assist in any work that we would have to do on the service lines. And when it's squeezed shut, it can be done so without damaging the pipe. And then there's also some advantages to the longevity of the material over copper, namely in corrosion resistance. So a little bit more about the PEX-A pilot project. Again, we started that pilot project in the fall of 2018. We coordinated with a local developer and installed 40 water services. The installation went really well. We were excited about it, and we wanted to continue the pilot project. So this summer, this 2019 construction season, we're planning on continuing the pilot project. Our water maintenance team will be doing the installation on new water service piping in new developments with this material. And then looking forward to the future, if we are satisfied with this pilot project after this construction season, we'll look to incorporate this material into our engineering design standards. So what we're looking at right now is this is the proposed update to the ordinance, Chapter 51.010, Section 3. Just a couple things I want to key on in this slide. The PEX-A service piping material columns are shown as being added for connections to both ductile iron pipe, or DIP, and then as well as the PVC mains. And I guess the thing I really want to key on this slide is that regardless of the size of the service, there is a cost savings when you compare this PEX-A service piping material to copper. So going forward, again, presenting tonight the first reading to the proposed update to the ordinance by resolution. Next Tuesday, May 21st, we would be doing the second reading to the update to the ordinance. Based on that time frame, we would be looking at June 2019 implementation of the update. And then again, pending a successful pilot program, we would be looking to incorporate this material into our engineering design standards. So I guess in summary, this material is part of a new pilot program that we're doing. The beginning stages have been successful. The material does have advantages, one of them being that it's less expensive to purchase and install, and that's the reason we're here today, is because we want to pass those savings on to the developer while we perform this pilot project. And we'd be asking for support from the council to update the ordinance. And with that, I'd like to take any questions anybody might have.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this topic this evening? Councilors, do you have any questions for Nick on this one? Councilor Sale.
Yes, and this change, certainly, we all know that PEX is a lot easier to work with than copper. Have you run this by the plumbing board to see what their input would be on this?
So I guess the plumbing board would have more to do with the piping within homes and buildings. So the standards that we look at are more applicable to underground development. So we'd be looking at some of the standards such as like the ASTM standards and things like that.
I appreciate that, but I would suggest that you talk to the plumbers that are out there, because they certainly worked with this material over a long period of time. Their input might be very valuable.
Yep, we can have that conversation before the second reading, certainly.
Other questions, council, for Nick on this? Look for a motion on it.
Move to approve.
All right.
Second.
Move to approve by Kylie and seconded by Councilor Sale. Any further discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote on this, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that is passed 7-0. Next item, please.
Item 25 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, declaring certain real property of the city surplus and authorizing the exchange of city land with a private landowner.
Hey, Lance.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Lance Weatherly, Principal Drainage Engineer. The ordinance presenting to you tonight is going to essentially address two matters. On the image above, there's two X's on the east side of town, near the Barrel House. There's some city drainage property that we feel has some surplus value to it. And on the west side of town, near a drainage property there's property owned by Bender Commercial that we've been working with to address an expired lease that Bender Commercial has on the east side property. And interestingly, the property on the west side of town by our Mandy Pond is by the library bar. So the surplus property that we are presenting is adjacent to a drainage way near 54th and Sycamore. Bender Commercial did have a lease for a sign on that property that's since expired, and we've been working to try to negotiate a new lease with that. On the west side of the city, next to a detention pond, the city has been working for a couple of years on a project called Southwest Sioux Falls Drainage Improvements, looking to bring drainage improvements from this location up to all the way up to RF Pettigrew and near the Galway Pond. We've been looking for additional area to construct additional detention on. So in city staff identified that the property on the east side of town, we had enough room to access and maintain that existing drainage property, so we feel we could deem that surplus. And in conversing with Bender Commercial, to exchange that for this property on the west side of town. We did engage an independent appraiser to appraise both properties, and one thing to note is the property that the city is receiving is an acre larger, so we are getting additional land. And with that, a representative of Bender Commercial and myself are available to answer any questions you may have. We would request a motion to set a date, second reading for May 21st.
All right, thanks, Lance. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic tonight? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Lance on this? Okay, look for a motion to set a date of second reading for next Tuesday, the 21st.
Move to set a date of hearing. Brecky.
Second, Nitzert.
All right, a motion on that by Brecky and seconded by Councilor Nitzert. Discussion, council? All right, a vote on this, please.
Council members Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item.
Item 27 is a resolution authorizing the city of Sioux Falls to give sandbags to the Santee Sioux tribe.
Hey, Lance.
Back again. So we recently had some flooding here in March, and we prepared for the worst. And we identified we had some surplus sandbags, and we certainly wanted, when we deemed those were surplus, we wanted to provide those to, we reached out to our county emergency managers and state emergency managers to see if there was any other entities or agencies that would be looking for some sandbags. The Flangers Santee Sioux tribe did identify that they would like 1,000 sandbags, and we did provide those sandbags to the tribe, and we're required to do a resolution for this gifting of the surplus of these materials. One thing to note, we do have some excess sandbags left, and we're using inmate labor to reclaim those materials, basically break those bags down and reclaim that sand and utilize that with street department functions and other needs that the city may have. So,
all right, thanks, Lance. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this topic tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Lance on this? Councilor Neitzer.
Well, I can personally attest the inmates did a great job filling them, going out to see it, so I'm sure they're doing a great job breaking them down. So I will move to approve.
All right.
Second, Erickson.
All right, motion by Neitzer to approve, seconded by Councilor Erickson. Any discussion, council? All right, a vote on this, please.
Council members Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr. Yes. Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, clerk. And there isn't any, so is there any new business?
Move to adjourn.
All right. Move to adjourn by Erickson, seconded by Starr. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? All right, we are adjourned.
Yes.